Hello and welcome to another episode of Political Agenda with me, PJ Thum, your host, and joining us again this week as co-host Sean Francis Han, Editor-in-Chief of Wake Up Singapore. Hello,
Hi.
Sean.
Glad to be here again. Okay, yeah, today I'm really excited. We got one of the big YouTube viral celebrities, Preetipls.
Doesn't get bigger than this.
Meili Chuchuni, yeah, the woman herself is right here, and we're going to ask her some grueling questions. So, PJ, why don't you start off with them?
Wow.
This is how I Tai Chi my way away from it. But yes.
Well, Preeti, thank you for joining us. It's so great to have you on the show. Let's just start with, we've had Subhash on a few weeks ago now. But I'd be interested in hearing about your past. I guess hazards of being a historian. I'm just very interested in people's past and how they got here and the formative experiences. So, yeah, why don't you just start with
like how it all began.
Yeah, how it all began.
So thanks for having me. And I started in 2016 or 17. It was the most random start. Like I literally just started making, I think that was when Snapchat and everything just started. So I was literally just making videos for fun. Like it would just be random, using different Snapchat filters. I was just saying a lot of random stuff and my friends loved it. So I was like, okay, I just created a different Instagram account. I put it all there and that was it. I was at a full-time job working at an agency. I did not think that was gonna like take off or do anything. And then one day at work, I was scrolling on Facebook as we all do at work. And I saw this video of an influencer on the streets of Orchard Road, literally making fun of everyone's fashion sense. So it was a video for Toggle, so a MediaCorp production. And she was literally walking along Orchard Road and rating people's fashion sense and just critiquing it. And their faces weren't even like censored. It was just completely just like bullying them on this platform.
Really?
And
a MediaCorp production?
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Right? I know.
I'm being sarcastic, by the way.
I'm still shocked it happened. No, but when I saw it, I remember thinking like, wait, are you kidding me? Like if I had a friend who was in this video, like if my friend just got shamed for like dressing a certain way, I'd be really pissed. And that's when the thought process went to like, that's kind of why a lot of people don't say anything, because you wait till you're personally affected or you wait till you know someone who just got like bullied or something like that. So that's when it hit me like, why am I gonna wait till a friend gets offended or I get made fun of to say something? And I was just a complete nobody, just working like a full-time job, and I was just like, you know what? I think it'd be really funny to parody this. It'd be really funny to walk along the streets of Orchard Road in a trash bag, looking like a mess, and calling myself Singapore's top fashion influencer, because I don't know where those credentials come from, but clearly you can call yourself anything, right? And you can make whatever you want. So that's what I did. And my friends and I, we filmed ourselves on our iPhones. I just made fun of like statues, inanimate objects. I was like 2/10 and I was just rating everything. And I walked like in slow-mo in a trash bag. I was like, my fashion sense is luxe, chic. Like it was just so full of shit. And the video blew up. Like overnight, people were like, because the original video was already getting a lot of flack. So people were like, oh my god, like, do you see this parody? Do you see this girl? Like, this is so funny, this is hilarious. And that was essentially what the original video did. I just because I wore a trash bag and called myself the top fashion influencer when I obviously wasn't, people lapped it up. Like, people loved it. They were like, thank you for like calling the original video out, because that was essentially just bullying. So that's how the Preetipls character started. I would just grab a mic and call myself Singapore's top whatever that was relevant for the video and whatever made sense. And that's literally it. Like, it blew up overnight and I just started making videos for fun. And then eventually I left my job because I started to get like offers and like actual like collaborations and brands and stuff. And then I was like, I couldn't work at my job anymore because I was at MediaCorp actually, and they made it very difficult. Like, I remember my first gig was like $100 paying gig, and MediaCorp was like, you need to do a full declaration form. We need to like get a cut of this. I'm like,
what?
It's $100. And I remember the HR person on the phone call literally saying, but you have a full-time job, why do you need to do these things? And I'm like, you don't know my life. You don't know like if I need extra cash. You don't know anything about me. You're literally a HR person who is so far removed from my life. So I remember thinking, like, having that conversation, thinking like, wow, people really just don't get it. Like, if I was just trying to hustle, if I was just trying to make like money on the side, and you don't know if I'm paying rent, you don't know what I'm doing with my life and my money. So I remember feeling like, this is not okay. And I had a conversation with my boss who was super supportive, and she said, you know what, you're really young, like, go figure this out. If you want to do something, like, if you want to have a YouTube career, do something online in comedy, like, go ahead, and if it doesn't work out, the door's always open, which is honestly very rare for a MediaCorp like person to just be so upfront and just tell me something like that. So she was essentially like one of the reasons why I was like really confident to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna try. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. There's no shame. I'm not like trying to do this to go viral or be famous. Like it will not be a failed career. If it just doesn't work out, just get a real job because I have bills to pay. You
So
know?
at that point, it was just like, let's just have fun with this and see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think back then my brother was still in university, so technically I was the only one in the family that was working a full-time job. So I remember thinking like, this is not a decision I can just like make on my own.
Yeah.
This was not something that I could just be like, you know what, let's do YouTube and then leave my job. It wasn't that easy and it wasn't that straightforward. So I remember actually like having a sit-down conversation with my mom and my brother, and we were like, okay, I'm just gonna try. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And back then my brother like did not like do anything in the media industry, so he was just like, okay, if you think it's gonna work out, then you just gotta do what you gotta do. Like if you need my help, let me know. So very grateful that of course they were very supportive, and my mom is just the kind of mom who's like, as long as you know what you're doing, go for it. Like she's always been that kind of mom. So I mean, she let me go to mass comm, so she's clearly the kind of mom that's like, you know, if you know what you're doing, go ahead and try it out. So yeah, if it doesn't work out, just like don't. There's no shame in that lah. So yeah, I'm so glad I just took that leap. I left MediaCorp, and since then I have not. I want to say I haven't looked back, but I kind of went back to MediaCorp to be a DJ. So I kind of looked back once, but other than that, like I never looked back. You know, I just did Pretty Please since 2017. Yeah.
So I see that your work has kind of evolved like right from the start. So when you first started out, it was a lot of viral videos, like the trash bag one that you.
Yeah.
I remember that like really fondly back in the day, and I remember the stuff you did with like UTL 666 as well.
Yeah.
Those were like the, you know, some really funny stuff that really marked the start of your work. And now it's gotten, I think, to a point, it's evolved a little bit where it's very much more overtly socio-political. So why did you want to make that shift? Why did you want to go from the kind of more subvert, kind of more tongue-in-cheek, and then move now into the more in-your-face, you know, this is the way things are?
Yeah, I think it was never like a conscious decision to be like, okay, now I gotta stop making it so subtle. I gotta be more like in your face. I think I never made that conscious decision. It was just like I think as time passed, I also kind of like grew up and learned a lot with the content I was making, the stuff that I was just exposed to around me. Like literally 3 years ago, I would never talk about politics. Like straight up, it was not something I was interested in. It was not something I would be able to even have a conversation about. And honestly, it was this year that made me realize that, oh my God, I need to learn more. I need to figure a lot of things out. I can't just sit here.
What was the catalyst for that though?
I think it was just, I didn't like not knowing about something.
Okay.
And obviously it was major. It was something I needed to know about. It was something that, I mean, it was my first time voting. So I'm like, I cannot not be informed. You know, I have to figure all these out. And of course I didn't have to do it on my own. We had like so many like resources out there this year. So I guess for me this year, like making the decision to also be involved, like in my, like for my content to be involved in politics and stuff like that, and to actually like use my platform to interview like members of the opposition party and things like that was something where I was essentially learning so much. Like when I met Dr. Chee Soon Juan, I was like, man, I learned so much in this half an hour conversation that I never thought I would like hear about, or even like have this like opportunity to like actually meet this guy face to face and talk about. So I was really learning as I was also just creating content for other people to also like learn and figure things out. I was literally learning as much as everyone else. Yeah.
So you and your brother both are very interested in sociopolitical issues, in Singapore politics, in just generally trying to make the world a better place. He takes the approach of rap and storytelling, and you take the approach of comedy, stealing that from your like Earth video. But anyway, so you take the approach of comedy. So what do you see the role of comedy as being in activism, in politics? You know, sometimes people think politics is sort of this like sort of serious thing, stuffy a little bit.
Who are these people?
They tend to be aligned with the state, and they discuss a lot of pragmatics and statistics, you know. Yeah, and they spend a lot of money on Facebook ads. Not going to say who here. But yes, what do you think is the role of comedy in activism?
I think comedy definitely helps a way younger audience get interested, and I think that has always been the reason for me. And of course, like a huge reason I go to comedy is just it's my coping mechanism with everything. It makes everything easier. It just makes everything like more like palatable, I guess, you know, because when you talk about things like politics, it's like why would the average like 14 or 15-year-old who follows Preetipls care? They can't even vote anytime soon. They might not even make the next election, you know. So it's just like, for me, it was, if I'm going to talk about something like this, it has to be easy and consumable, and, you know, something that's really just so straightforward and it makes you laugh enough for you to like continue watching this video. So I definitely like use comedy a lot. I use comedy for everything, and of course I love satire because I hate slapstick stuff. It's just not me. I mean, like every YouTuber in Singapore, I feel like that's the go-to, and there's a reason why I don't watch local YouTube. You know, I never did. So I guess for me it was it's just not the comedy that I like. It's not something that makes me laugh. So that was never the approach. It was never like, let's do something so in your face and so absurd, you know, and so ridiculous that's just gonna make you laugh like mindlessly. You know, it was always something that I love to like have kind of like Easter eggs in my videos. My Chinese subtitles don't match, like, and that's deliberate.
Yes.
Yeah, like it's literally like I would say things like, if you've been living under a rock, and then my subtitles will be like, 你有没有跟 the rock 上床? Like, have you slept with the rock? It's really like absurd, ridiculous, and most times it's really just like for the lols. But of course, like sometimes when there's something that is too blatant and I really can't say out loud, like you cannot hear these words come out from my mouth, it will be in the subtitles, because maybe I'll get in trouble if I say it, or maybe it's just too much for someone to hear. So if you read the subs, you will see a whole other meaning. And I mean, I do wish I could speak like Malay and Tamil very fluently to do subs for all 4 languages, because that would just be so much fun. But I mean, it's only, the only reason it's Mandarin is because that was my second language. If not, it would be Tamil. It would be something else. Yeah.
There's a long history throughout human, history of humor being not just a way to critique politics, but essential to the political process, right? There's a reason why monarchs had court jesters, because sometimes only people who are able to turn things into humor are able to say things with complete honesty. And you take things too seriously, and if you're not able to laugh at yourself, then you can't look at any issue with clarity, right? So humor actually has a very great way of cutting through a lot of the bullshit that surrounds stuff, and also exposing, what is hypocritical, but also what is important. So, in some ways, you and to a certain extent, what I try to do with the show, not nowhere as successfully as you, of course, but what we're trying to do is to use humor to cast the light both on sort of all the frailties of our human nature, but also all the hypocrisies, all the the sort of really almost too serious things that you can't, if you talk about them seriously, they would overburden us, and humans were lighting that. So that you're following in a glorious grand tradition here, and you're playing a crucial role.
Yeah, I think it's also a lot of fun, because it's kind of like, I'm just gonna make a joke about this. If you get it, you get it. If you know what I'm trying to say, you know what I'm trying to say. So it's not overtly like, here's the message of this video and this is what I'm trying to like get you to think or talk about. So I love how subtle it is. I love how like it's just a lot of fun. Like the scripting, the editing, like with like just a random cutaway to something absurd. I think I just have so much fun with it that I'm never gonna stop like using comedy as an approach to talk about all these things, for sure. But of course, like recently it's been more like, it's been way less comedy, and it's been more like, hey guys, we need to talk about this, like in a lot of my recent videos. But I think it's also I guess it's just reading the room. when it's stuff like talking about the death penalty, the last thing I'm gonna do is try make this funny, or try make this like a super hilarious, like make you laugh your ass off kind of video, because that just didn't feel right. And it was also like the urgency of making that video before like Thursday, because like someone else was gonna be like up for execution and stuff like that. It was just too much, and it didn't feel right. Like making that video and talking about it and even scripting it, I was like, nah, I'm just gonna talk about this. If you watch my stuff, if you see all the funny stuff, you're gonna give me the benefit of doubt and like watch this video for a bit to see that I'm actually talking about something important here. And I think it's the same with the fundraiser video that we did in April. So it was also like, we did try to like throw in a couple of jokes here or there, or comparisons here or there, when we talked about how like, when in a small part of the video, we did a comparison of like how the migrant workers pandemic reality is like, we compared it to like Singaporeans' everyday reality and stuff like that, and how, we're whining about not being able to travel and go on vacays, when in reality, like, there are so many people, hundreds of thousands of people who are literally trapped and not knowing like when they can go out to buy groceries again. So, you know, we made like a lot of ridiculous, like I mean, they're not ridiculous, they're real, but of course the way we showed it in our video was like me and Wisan, my intern, we were just acting as like the really problematic people doing all the crazy stuff and trying to kind of show people that, yeah, you actually say these things, you know, you are kind of guilty of like having these thoughts and saying these things out loud and being really tone deaf sometimes. So I guess one thing that I like to do in my video a lot is to be the problem. So I will show you how wrong this is, or like how problematic a lot of things are, by being the delusional character that's pretty please, Singapore's top everything, and I'm saying all the offensive things sometimes just to let you know that, yeah, people really do this shit. Yeah.
So speaking about sort of race and discrimination, right? The most famous expression of that, of course, is the Nets ePay saga. Like, can you tell us a bit about that? How did everything go down? What are your thoughts on the issue? How did you feel? Did you feel like you succeeded? Did you feel like you got your message across?
I think it was kind of funny how like everything happened, because when the ad came out and my DMs was just like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Like everyone was just sending me screenshots of a brown dentist chew and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So eventually when I read articles about it and stuff, I was like, are you kidding me? Like this happened again? This is not the first time brownface has happened in Singapore. And for a MediaCorp veteran actor to do this, it's just like, they've done it so many times. Like Desmond Tan has done this. He is extremely successful. He's like one of the most famous like Channel 8 actors until today. And this guy has done brownface before. You know, he was acting as some like Sikh guard, and he painted his whole face brown, wore a mustache, wore a turban. He did all that. And these guys have super like amazing, flourishing, thriving careers. And I'm just here like, my brother and I made a video about this, and our careers like pretty much almost ended at the moment. If we didn't just continue talking about this shit and kind of just like fighting it out and just like sticking to exactly what we wanted to say in this video. And I think like with every like saga, or with everything that happens in the YouTube scene or like in the influencer scene in Singapore, people disappear. They disappear so quick. I mean, when it comes to like Eden Ang, you know, Dkosh, like they just go silent for a very long time, and people, sometimes they don't come back. You know, sometimes they just take months or years to come back. And in my head, I'm like, but I didn't make a mistake like that. I did not sexually harass. I did not do something that's literally illegal. I still stand by what I do. And even though it's illegal, you know, I don't believe it. Like, that's not what I'm still going to stick by exactly what I said in that video. So I made sure to like, when the case wasn't closed yet and we were waiting, literally just waiting it out. It was National Day weekend last year. We were trying to like get the outcome of our case. They made us wait for really, really long. And I remember thinking like, every year I do a Pretty Please National Day video, and it's always ridiculous. It's always absurd. For the 52nd birthday, I did like, oh, I only love my country half the time, so I'm going to show you 26 things I love about Singapore. So it was like, I always make like videos like that on National Day. So I was like, this year shouldn't be any different. Just because there's a case that's open, and I still stand by what I said. So I felt like not making a video would have kind of like scared my followers or people who were really supporting me, because they would have been like, oh shit, like Preeti's really not allowed to say anything now, or like what's happening, is she okay? And there were a lot of like people who were just really like scared on our behalf. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like speak to lawyers, and I'm gonna make sure that I make a National Day video and make sure this script doesn't get me in any trouble. So I made a video. I think it was the Singaporean alphabet. So I did like A to Z things in Singapore, and I made sure to take a lot of like disses or like cheap shots at a lot of the things that were going on. But I was just so glad that like I made a video, and people were literally, the comments were like, pretty please, I'll come back, queen. Like, I never left. But you know, I knew it was something that I needed to do. If not, like people were just gonna be really terrified and be like, oh my god, they really silenced them, you know, they really like they won. And I'm like, no, like I'm still gonna keep making this. And once the case was closed, my next video was things I'm scared to do now that I have a conditional warning. Like, I was like, I'm just gonna be real as shit, because not a lot of people have conditional warnings. Not a lot of people know how it feels like to literally have to think twice about everything you put out. And I mean, a conditional warning literally means if I commit any crime, they can charge me in court for the rap video. And it's funny because when I joke about it with my friends, I'm like, okay, don't ask me to jaywalk, because you know, they're gonna call me and be like, oh, you did the brown face rap. Yeah, so you know, it's funny now. It's been over a year. I can laugh about it for sure. But those first few weeks, those first few months were just intense. I was like, I remember writing other scripts and doing other videos, and I would ask my brother, like, do you think we should reach out to like our lawyer? Do you think we should reach out to him? And then he's like, I don't think we should. We can't keep doing this because we'll do this for the next 2 years if you keep doing this. Then I'm like, that's true. If this was something I would have put out either way, then I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah.
So
why do you think people got so triggered by the video though? Why do you? It feels like it touched a raw nerve somewhere.
Yeah, I think it was. I honestly do think it was very real for sure. Like a lot of the things that we said, other than if you minus the chorus, like a lot of the other lyrics and the other stuff that we talked about was like when we said things like we lost all our enclaves and our holy days, things like that. You know, it's legit. You know, it's legit things that we've been talking about for years, but we put it all in this one track. And I think it was very overwhelming. It was a lot because it was just way too real. And of course, people are just going to harp on the fact that, oh, you guys use vulgarities. It was just a lot. You know, if you wanted to get a message across, don't flip someone off. You know, don't use the F word. And I think that's a very classic old school way to shut down a conversation. You know, it's like, oh, it's too much for us to handle. If you need to talk to me nicely if you want me to listen to you. But I'm like, I think a lot of people have been trying to say this nicely for a very long time. So I think that was the biggest trigger, you know, the F words, the how much fun we were having just dancing around the Maxwell Food Center with the poster behind us. I think it was just, people did not expect someone to like actually go down there and make fun of the ad like that or call the ad out like so blatantly like that. Yeah, so it was definitely a lot for like the average person on Facebook or YouTube to like handle.
I mean, one individual that was particularly triggered was Xia Xue, right? Which is,
when is she not?
She had a sort of I believe I'm sure you've seen the video, but she sat down with Herzi and Dikosh to discuss it, and she got particularly like livid. There is, I mean, and that is sort of emblematic of this culture of tone policing that comes from those in power, those who are connected, those in the majority. How has that affected you? What do you think? What do you think is the damage that tone policing is doing to our discussion? Right? Because she's saying, "Oh, you know, it's so vulgar. Oh, no, it's shutting down any discussion. It's attacking."
And I think it's important to point out, right, that tone policing is a classic strategy of limiting protest into forms which can't actually achieve real concrete change, right? So it's not a question of, oh, you're using vulgarities and that's wrong. It's a question of from the people, you know, who are in authority, who have power, how do we limit the way minorities, people are discriminated against, how do we limit them so that they only protest in ways which don't actually achieve concrete change and don't threaten our power, right? And so one of the ways they do that is by tone policing and more broadly saying that, oh, it is against our culture, you know, against our national identity to talk this way. It is a very, you know, foreign way, Western way, all that nonsense,
Which
right?
is bizarre because you can't simultaneously say, oh, I love Lee Kuan Yew, he's such a strong man, he says it like it is, right? He doesn't care, he's gritty, right? And then say, oh no, these Indian girls say F word. It just doesn't make sense, right? That's just hypocrisy at its finest.
Yeah. And they said like we were influenced by the West, but brownface is a concept that is not Singaporean, you know? So that obviously was something that if you look back at the years of the history and everything, like it's essentially blackface. You know, you take this from America, it's a super West concept. Why are we doing this in Singapore? You know, when did this start? So I don't know, like when they said influenced by the West, it was just so hilarious because that was literally National Day weekend. And they got rappers on the National Day stage rapping about Singapore shit, and I'm just like,
where does rap come from?
Exactly,
It's
and
an indigenous art form.
Yeah, is rap only okay when it like pushes your national identity or whatever like agenda you have? So that's when it got really frustrating because you would put this on a National Day stage, you would do all that as long as it makes you money or like does whatever it does for National Day or Singapore. But when it's rap and when we talk about real shit or talk about things that you don't want to hear, that's when it's, oh no, this has to be from the West. We did not teach them this in school, you know, and that's when it got very frustrating because that was the same weekend and just like watching all this like play out on TV and we were just still waiting for our outcome and all this. It was such a frustrating time. It was just like, like I know they obviously waited it out because they didn't want our outcome or like the case to take like center stage when the whole country, like all the headlines, everything had to be about National Day, of course. Like you couldn't, like everyone was waiting for the brown face like case, like what was gonna happen, and then they only like gave us an outcome August 14. So yeah, our conditional warning started on the 14th of August 2019. Yeah.
So speaking of people who have adopted problematic things from the West, let's talk about Xia Xue and fat shaming.
Oh yeah, so earlier when you asked about the Xia Xue video, I did not watch it. It was a 4-part video with Decor, Cheersy, Xia Xue. I did not watch anything because I'm like, I obviously need to take care of my own mental health. Like watching this shit is gonna make me so mad.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people obviously forget that we are real people. My mother's there every day watching the news, like traumatized that her kids are on the news every night, and she's like taking videos and sending the family chat like, in case y'all like didn't know, like this is happening. And I'm just like, how do we sit my mom down and explain to her this entire brownface thing? Like, you know, these are real things that we actually had to do and actually had to go through. And while the Channel 5 was just making me look like some deranged psycho, but they took like the worst screenshots and like blew it up and used that.
But that's part of the strategy, right? They
sure.
actually are told, especially on election time, you know, the instructions were pick the worst possible photo of these of the opposition politicians. So it's this whole thing. These attacks on our mental health is part of the strategy to silence us and shut us down.
Yeah.
We need that needs to be said and made clear.
Yeah, I think that's why we felt so motivated to. We're not gonna stay silent, because staying silent, I mean, we're not gonna keep talking about this exact case, but I just wanted to make sure that people who follow me, people who are just backing us up and supporting us since day one and knew our intentions behind the video, like I wanted those people to know that this is not gonna stop us. Like, we're still gonna make content, we're still here to stay, and I'm just gonna milk this as much as I can. Singapore's top conditional warning receiver. That's what I called myself. I made the next video, and that video blew up. And I literally would step on the road, and my intern was like, "Hello, police." So we made a very ridiculous like video of how anything I do now is probably going to be illegal, and we had a lot of fun with that. So yeah, with the YouTube scene, the Xia Xue stuff. I mean, it's hilarious that she's going to talk about tone policing because she's made a career just talking shit. Yeah. And if she got tone policed, she would not be where she is today. And it's just. And I think like this is just a personal like gripe I have with a lot of things in the media industry. I feel like you just need to be it's just first move advantage. You just need to be the first person to do something to be successful. You don't need to be good at it at all. Like in the YouTube scene, you just need to do this shit for 10 years. You just need to pull a decosh, sit there, switch on your camera and talk about anything, insult whoever you want. No consequences. You just do whatever it takes. And he's done this shit for 10 years. He's easily one of the biggest YouTubers in Singapore. And even in the music scene, like when you talk about rap music, is Sugar Shay the best rapper we have in Singapore? Probably not. But is he going to be on every hip-hop lineup? Yes, because any agency, any company is trying to plan something, they're going to think of him just because he's done this shit long enough. And I'm not saying he sucks. Don't want to get into that conversation, but I'm just saying you don't have to be the best at it. You just need to be the first. And that's like a personal gripe that I've had for so long, because it is like, I just came up on the scene like 3 years ago, and it is like, I don't know, I guess a lot of people also feel very like, you know, like, where did I come from? Like, who am I? Where did I come from? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, this was so random. Like, my career was like overnight. It was the most random thing. So I guess it's just so frustrating to have like people who are obviously like big names in the scene, like, you know, take this as an opportunity to like, let's all come together, let's sit down and let's tear this apart, you know, let's take this down, let's shut this down, let's use her face as the thumbnail and like make fun of her. And they also like did stupid like little jabs of like not calling my brother Subhash and wanting to purposely call him Pretty Please's brother, because they knew that shit just is annoying. So it's like things like that. It's very personal. It's very like, this is very petty, and you're not actually gonna sit down and talk about race. You know what they did in the video? My friends like showed me a snippet. They literally looked through all my Insta stories. There was one video where I pulled an Indian accent, but it was an inside joke because it was so actually Sean and I went to mass comm together. I don't think people know that. But in school there was a radio module, and in the radio assignment we had to do a whole take the listeners on a journey and bring them to different places around the world. So our whole concept was a time travel thing, and we ended up in India for one of the scenes. So me being the Indian person in the group acted like the Indian lady with an Indian accent, which I did not think was racist or inappropriate or wrong because it's a radio assignment. So years later, my friend Insta-storied me doing something, and I picked up like a fruit, and I quoted myself, and I said the same exact line in an Indian accent from my radio assignment, which nobody would get. If you're watching this, it's just a random funny video, I guess. They brought all those videos up. They were like, you see, Preeti has made fun of the Indian accent, and she makes fun of Indian people. So like, you know, and now she's saying all these things about brownface and Chinese people doing these things. And I was just like, I saw that snippet. I'm like, you don't know shit about anything. Like, relax. And really, an Indian person making an Indian accent, and not even in an offensive, like, it was just a quote from something you don't know. And I was just like, wow, you guys really put in a lot of effort to try like cancel me or like tear me down, and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this 4-part video. I'm not gonna put myself through this shit. I'm just gonna move on. So I literally that was the only thing I watched from it, like that one snippet, and I was like, I'm not gonna look back. I don't care if that shit got them like hundreds and thousands of views, and how much money did they make off talking shit about me and my brother? A lot. You know, in YouTube money, that's gonna be a lot. So it was very infuriating in that moment. But I mean, of course, I had a way bigger battle. You know, the last thing I wanted to focus my energy on was YouTubers talking shit about me when I got a conditional warning. You know, these are real actual things, and like things like telling my mom, you know, all these things I had to actually worry about. So it was easy to like ignore it. It was like frustrating, but I was just like, not my priority, not something I want to get into. So I just move past it really quick.
You're kind of also touching on or exposing some structural forces here, though, which is that, you know, you talked about how they were just first movers, but they're also people who have really chosen to invest in propping up the current status quo, right, and working for the establishment point of view, punching downwards, you know, taking on not the people who have power, but the people who are powerless. And then because of that, they get rewarded, right? And this shows the profitability of supporting the establishment, supporting the status quo, how it helps your career longevity, right? And reinforcing the very discriminatory ideas and mechanisms that shape our lives also is very profitable for them, right? And so, you know, this whole story is also exposes just how the whole you know, the discrimination in our society, both structurally propagated by the government, but also the unconscious you know, ideas that we have all reinforce each other, and the incentive structure to reinforce those things. You know, whereas someone like yourself challenges that and gets into a whole shitload of trouble.
It's just very exhausting, because I feel like if someone's gonna like try critique something, you know, the last thing you should do, like if you don't have an opinion about it, or if you have nothing to contribute here, like stick to what you do, like stick to what you know. You know, don't take this as an opportunity to be like, okay, but why are you challenging status quo? And it's just so frustrating, because I think status quo has been something that we've all been trying to like, I guess, like just stop. Like we hate the status quo. There are a lot of us who just want this shit to stop. And it's so frustrating when people go the extra mile to like keep it the status quo. You know, it's just like, if you can't contribute here, you're not going to add to this conversation, or you're not going to actually like try and understand where we're coming from, or like what we're trying to say, then don't just shut us down. You know, it's just, and that's just been a like consistent thing. Like these guys with power, or like with a certain like platform or influence, they just keep doing that. So yeah, when it comes to like the industry, the influencer scene and shit, I'm just like, I'm just gonna keep doing what I do. I'm just gonna do what I want to do. I'm just gonna do what makes me happy and what I think adds value here. And I'm just gonna stick to me. I've never been like a, hey, let's collaborate. You know, I've never been that. But when I came out of nowhere, everyone wanted to collaborate with me. Literally, Dkosh, Hirzi, everybody came up to me like, oh my God, Singapore's top influencer. And I was so overwhelmed. And nobody would believe this, but I'm an introvert. And it's a lot. It's a lot to have people that you see have existed in the scene forever come up to you and be like, oh my God, let's make a video together. Let's do this, let's do that. And then I'm just like, but I don't want to do anything. I just want to make parodies. I want to make funny videos and talk about stuff I care about. I've never been like okay, how about you come on my channel and, you know, I'll come on yours and we help each other out. Like, I've never, like, exactly, I think my intentions from the start has never been, how much can I grow this channel? It's always just been, what can I talk about now? What can I address now? What can I make fun of now? You know, it's always just been, I feel like it's been the same since day one. So I'm glad it's been consistent. I'm glad I never got like swayed by things like fame or whatever. You know, I'm just going to keep doing this until I think like it's not going to do anything anymore for anyone else.
I think that's one of the things that's particularly commendable about your career, is that you stuck very close to yourself, your ideals, goals, and your beliefs, right? A lot of it is your own direction. It's what you want to do. It's your own beliefs, your ideas, your goals, your ambitions. So it's very you, right? You have that freedom to produce the content that you want to produce, that you believe in, right? But you did have a sort of brief stint with 987 FM. So what was it like working with the institution, with the establishment?
Okay, so when I went to mass comm, I always wanted to be a journalist. But when I left after 3 years, I was like, okay, I love radio, I want to do radio, and I love advertising. So I guess I'm really grateful because being Preetipls is kind of in the advertising world. You know, I work with a lot of brands and stuff like that. And I guess the one like dream job that I've always wanted to try but never got to was being a DJ. So I used to work at MediaCorp like way back maybe 5 years ago. So I knew people who worked at MediaCorp, and when I started making videos and I was pretty pleased, they reached out and they were like, actually, how do you feel about having a part-time stint with us? And I mean, when you work at a place like MediaCorp and do a part-time stint, it's never going to be about the money because it is essentially, if you don't claim your caps, you're pretty much paying to work there. So it was never like a, okay, this would be a great like side gig, you know, side income. It was just, okay, I've always wanted to be a DJ, and of all stations, like 987, it's where like I have most of my friends work there. This was just the only, like, it just made a lot of sense. So they offered me a gig that was really very, it was very random, and I don't think they've had an arrangement like this with anyone else. But essentially, there was a DJ called Shamien. So she hosted the 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. show every night, Monday to Friday. And they said, okay, how about you come in every night at 10 p.m. So she already had the show going on for like 2 hours, and I would join halfway, and that's when like they wanted it to be like, okay, that's when like the party starts, you know, that's when like you come in and it's like extra fun, and then you guys can talk about like entertainment news, all these things that were really like casual fun stuff where kids are tuned in, you know, at night. And we took in a lot of calls who were like secondary school kids and stuff like that. So it was very fun because Charmian and I were already friends, so it was natural, it was really easy. And when I took on the job, I was like, we had no contract in place because at MediaCorp, when you do a part-time thing, you literally sign like a freelancer blue form, you just get paid like timesheet kind of stuff. So there was no contract. The only thing that I signed was an IMDA regulation thing, which anybody who is on air has to sign, you know. So you can't talk about LGBTQ stuff, you can't talk about these things, that things, and nothing like that's going to get the station in trouble, basically. So I have never once like violated that. I have on air been talking about random funny stuff, always like I try to still keep it very Preetipls, and I know of course in my content and my videos I talk about a lot of things that could be very controversial and stuff like that. So I knew that I couldn't bring all that to 987, but I was essentially just hosting a show with my friend. So I had a lot of fun. It was really chill. And one day on my way to work at 987, I took a cab to work, and the taxi driver was like, why are you going to MediaCorp so late? You security guard ah? Like exact words. And I'm just there like you know, it's very tricky because like the last thing I want to say is that I'm offended by being called a security guard. But the why I was offended was obviously because this is a racial stereotype in Singapore. Like come on, like let's be real. So when I heard that, I'm like, huh? Like why is that the first thing you say? I'll just ask and wait for a response. You know, the conversation could have gone so differently. So of course, I'm not someone that, surprisingly, I'm not someone that was gonna that's up for confrontation. I was just like, no, I actually like do the night show, and then I was just like, okay, never mind. I don't really want to talk to this guy, so I just like started tweeting on my phone, and I usually tweet like any kind of like weird encounter or anything that happens, because I mean Twitter's like what's on your mind, right? So I just tweet whatever, and so I innocently tweeted about the conversation, the exchange, and of course, I was really mad. So I did use vulgarities in my tweet, but it was along the lines of like, oh, are you effing kidding me? You know, it was stuff like that. And literally, I reached the station at 10 p.m. and I was ready to start the show. And my boss starts calling me, and she's like, what's this about a tweet? You know, I saw something that you tweeted. Brand and Comms sent me a screenshot of your tweet. That at 10 p.m. at night. And I'm like, who at Brandon Comms has set notifications for my tweets? Who is doing this to me? Who is snitching? And eventually, like, yeah, I was so confused. And I'm like, I really don't think like some random, like, way older person has like notifications set like on my tweets and is really watching. So I don't know who sent it in. But basically, it was really within minutes. I got a call and I had to explain what happened. And I remember like still feeling very like hot from like what happened. I was really like mad. And when I was sharing what happened, like, I remember like my boss at that time, she did not have a reaction that was like she wasn't like, she didn't show any form of sympathy, or she wasn't just like trying to say like, oh, I'm sorry this happened, I'm sorry, like that's not okay, you know. She didn't like say these things. And in the moment she was like, okay, yeah, I think it's better if you remove these tweets because like you're associated with the brand and you represent our brand. And of course, in that moment, I literally had to host a show, and I didn't want to get into a whole like, but I don't have a contract, like that's not, yes, I represent the brand because people associate me with it, but at the end of the day, there is nothing that's in place saying I cannot say these things online. And if you were going to tone police Pretty Please, like there's a reason why you want Pretty Please on your show. You hired me because like I'm funny, people want to see my shit, and there's a reason why you want to put me on 987. But to change the person that I am and the things that I talk about, that defeats the purpose. And you can't just take all the good parts of Pretty Please and not want the very real things that I talk about as well.
And that's very dehumanizing as well, right? This whole depoliticizing of the individual, right? Because things are going to happen to you, and you're going to use political ideas to unpack them. We are political beings, and we live in a political society. What kind of life is that? like where you can't tweet your mind and unpack the ideas and just kind of process what's going on. What kind of life is that? Okay.
And it was so like, I think it just felt very like, I think the intentions here were also very clear. Like, I'm tweeting something that just made me, it was a moment of frustration. It was a moment that made me just go back to it goes back to my content since day one. I've talked about discrimination, I talked about all these ridiculous stereotypes, and it just is so much like to unpack here, and there's just so much that I feel very strongly about this, obviously. So to get a response like, oh, you represent our brand, I'm like, but Pretty Please has always been someone that has talked about these things, and like if you didn't want that, then don't hire me. So like the next week and stuff like that, my boss wanted to have meetings with me. She sat me down and she's like, oh, actually, like, I think, and she went on a whole like spiel of other things that I can't do. And she said things like, even when you attend events, I know that you're not a MediaCorp DJ, but when you attend events, like, try not to like associate with people from other radio stations or SPH stations. And they told me all these things. I'm like, you're literally telling me who I can or cannot hang out with. And to me, that's like if my best friend started a gig tomorrow at Kiss 92 and you're telling me I can't take a picture with her, like, no, like, so I'm not going to wait till that happens. So same thing, I just told her off. I was like, so what are you trying to say? And then she said, maybe it's better if you take a break. And then I was so triggered. I literally said, do you mean I should leave? Like, I had to dumb this conversation down like crazy. And she was like, yeah, I think like maybe it's better. And then I said, okay, I'll leave next week. Like I literally said I'll leave next Friday. Like, just let me say goodbye to like the people who actually tune into the show, because that's what matters the most at that time. And I was like, let me say bye and I'll leave. And then she said, actually, can you stay till the end of the month? And I'm like, no. So I left so quick. I mean, it was sad to leave because I loved the job. I genuinely like loved being on radio and stuff, but of course didn't love all the strings attached with MediaCorp. So I was very like, I felt a huge sense of relief to leave also, because I did this for a year-ish, and I got to do like the dream job. I got to try something that I've always wanted to try. And eventually I was like, nah, the last thing I want to be is tone police. The last thing I want is for someone to censor me so heavily when I did not even violate my IMDA shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here getting the station fined for saying things. And there are people who have gotten the station fined for saying a lot of dumb shit on air who still have jobs.
Yeah.
So I was just really annoyed about it.
When you were first telling me the story, I was kind of confused. I was like, where does this person get the sense of authority from?
Yeah.
And I realized that actually, no, there's a huge institutional power and authority that they wield over you, because they know that they are the ones that can make and break your career. You should be happy to be working for us, because that's how the creative industry is in Singapore. If you're not with us, you're going to suffer and die and wither on your own. And then they wonder, oh no, why is the art scene, why is the creative scene in Singapore not doing well? It's because you have to sell your soul. You can't be a political human being. You can't talk about the things that you want to talk about. You can't decompress. You can't, unpack the issues. Yeah, it's scary.
The censorship state, right? Because by trapping us in wage labor, which the PAP government has systematically pushed us towards, right? Wage labor, you have massive debts to service, right? Your HDB flat, your car, the high cost of living means you're constantly trapped in this cycle of needing to make money. And because the government dominates so many important industries, dominates the economy full stop, right? So they're able to use your wage employment as a way of controlling you, because if they can threaten your paychecks, then you don't have anything to pay all the massive debts that you have to accrue as part of living in Singapore. So it's just this whole overall control over us that I think people don't necessarily realize, but by trapping us into wage labor and burdening us with debts, right, and having the government have so much influence on both sides of the scale, it then enforces compliance on us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So coming now to the political work that you've done, right? You did a lot of amazing things on the recent campaign, G 2020. So I remember at Wake Up Singapore, we were kind of snooping around and kind of seeing like, okay, what is Preetipls doing? And then we saw this video with you and Chee Soon Juan in the thumbnail,
Yeah.
and we were like, oh my god, that is scandalous, right?
Yeah.
Because Chee Soon Juan's been character assassinated
Yep.
no end, like just obsessively at this point,
Yeah.
right? And then you were in the video, and it was really amazing, like the tone of it, and you guys were sitting at the MRT having
Yeah.
this very
So
real, chill, genuine
Yeah.
kind of talk, like between two friends, two equals, right? So tell me about what was it like meeting Chee Soon Juan? What was it like talking to him? What was it like working on that campaign and following GE?
So I guess when the news of GE had like broke, it was really just a matter of days, right, for everyone to like kind of figure stuff out and also like create content about it or just help be like a resource for a lot of people who needed a resource. So I guess for me, I really like the goal in my head was pretty ambitious, but I really wanted to do an episode of my series Nobody Asked, and I wanted to do an episode where nobody asked, but I interview opposition party politicians. And it was just, I wanted to just get one person from each party. And I really wanted each party. Like I would have gotten Lim Tian if I could, you know? Like I really wanted like one of each, because it was, I didn't want it to be entertaining. I didn't want it to be funny. If it was going to be absurd, ridiculous at some point, sure. But
I would have just loved to see you call the guy out, but yes.
Right? Yeah, I know. So I just wanted to like have a lot of fun with it, and the vibe was always to just be casual, a real conversation wherever they were contesting in. I wanted to go meet them at and just walk through the neighborhood, you know, just something very chill. And I knew it was really ambitious because everyone's trying to interview them, everyone's trying to like meet them and just speak to them. So I was like, this is going to be ambitious, so I'm just going to try. There's nothing to lose. So I remember reaching out to Nicole Seah, reached out to Jameis, and I think so we went talks with Raisa, but everything blew up. And then I was like, okay, I'm definitely not gonna like, there's no pressure here, don't be on my video, you know, it's fine, you clearly have a lot more to deal with. And of course, like I think with everything that happened, like WP was a bit more like, you know, strict with like interviews and stuff like that. So it never worked out with them, but I was like, that was what I was really hoping for, would have been really fun. And then for me, like the next ultimate like goal of like someone I wanted to meet or someone I just wanted to have a conversation with was Dr. Chi. So how I reached out to him was like really random because we knew, I'm pretty sure you guys know Swee Lin. So Swee Lin is amazing. She's like one of the coolest people ever. She was volunteering for SDP. So when I found out she was volunteering, I just shared with her this idea, you know, I would love to meet like Dr. Paul, Dr. Chi, and just have a chill conversation. She's like, okay, I have his walkabout schedule. Let me tell you when he's free. And she's like, let me let the team know and I'll get back to you. And she made everything work out. She's amazing. And she's like, they would be so grateful to even have you do a video. I'm like, what? No, it's the complete opposite, but sure. So it was a random morning and we went on Bukit Batok, and literally Dr. Chi had the widest smile on his face the moment like I looked at him. I was like, are you kidding me? I've never seen this. I've literally never seen this version of Dr. Chi. And of course, this is him. This is the real him. And I'm just like, that's insane, because everything I know is from, everything that I know that's kind of like of the real him are the interviews that he's done or like his own stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. So I was just like very overwhelmed, and I was of course very nervous, but we just walked around Bukit Batok. We were trying to like figure out, okay, where should we have this conversation? And I was like, actually, these steps are perfect. It's empty in the morning. It's kind of chill. MRT is going to be kind of noisy, but you know what? We'll make it work. Like, let's just have a chat here. And it was, I don't know, it was one of the best like conversations I've had. Like it was a 30-minute conversation. I kept everything in. I left like almost every single one of his responses in. So that was essentially the whole time span of like me actually meeting him and talking to him. And we left like he went on like with the walkabout and stuff. So many people were like coming up to meet him, talk to him. So we didn't want to like take up his time, but talking to him was insanely eye-opening. I was like, literally, I made sure to, obviously in my content and in my questions, I didn't want to keep it like 100% super political, because at the end of the day, I do comedy first. And I did want to have a different side of Dr. Chi. You know, I did want to have something chill. I did want to ask him if he liked dogs or cats more. You know, I did want to have those kinds of questions also to kind of tell everyone like, this guy is so real and no one's going to have this kind of conversation with him, because like obviously the media's just going to keep portraying him a certain way, and you're never going to see this on mainstream media. You're just going to see this on YouTube channels and people who are just trying to like show the real Dr. Chi, or trying to like have these real conversations with him. So that was the goal. I just wanted to have a casual conversation, and that was exactly what we got. It was I mean, of course, I wanted to ask him about a lot of things like repeal 377A and all these things, and I did try, but of course, he didn't go like super in depth into all those things. But he did talk a lot about race, and he did talk a lot about like how he thinks it's ridiculous that his own party like teammates like they had to go like prove their race and stuff like that when you're contesting, and he did share about all that, and I was like, that is definitely super eye opening to like the average Preetipls like fan or viewer, because pretty sure they don't know that actually has to happen. And I just thought it was very insightful.
So from the outside, what we see as sort of the achievements of the video is that it blew up, right? It got amazing response. It got amazing engagement, right? But on your end, do you get like messages? How has that video sort of achieved the goals that you set out?
I definitely think like it definitely blew up more than I expected it to. I knew it would do well because at the end of the day, like Dr. Chi was not someone that like got enough representation in the media, so people are just really like looking out to find anything that featured him or that showed like a different side of him. So I knew it was going to do well, but it really like blew up. And I definitely did get hate messages also, like people saying things like, or like quoting stuff that happened in the past, or like putting in like articles or receipts of stuff that he said before, and trying to like just tear him down and character assassinate him all over again. And all that was happening. But I think personally, like the amount of people who DM me to just say thank you for doing this, or like thank you for like, oh, I'm from Bukit Batok, like thank you for doing this, I've met him so many times, he's an amazing guy, like thanks for like helping like other people see this as well. And I think I really did not like expect, like when I was doing like elections coverage also, to me I was like, okay, let's just create as much content as I can, talk to whoever I possibly can, because I obviously just want people to vote for the opposition party for sure. And if it was SDP or WP, I'm just gonna do whatever I can to shout them out as much as I can. So for me, that was my goal, and I'm just gonna shout them out because they obviously don't have enough representation in media, or if they're featured, it's just gonna be not as much as the ruling party, obviously. So I was just like, I'm just gonna do what I can. If it blows up, it blows up. If it doesn't, whoever that sees this is gonna learn something for sure. Yeah, so that was the goal. And I think for weeks after the elections, or even like the next whole month, everyone I met or everyone who bumped into me literally would talk about it. Literally would be like, thank you for that, or like thank you for creating like election content, and thank you for even talking about these things, because a lot of influencers wouldn't talk about these things. And I mean, it's funny lah when I mean, yes, I guess I'm an influencer at the end of the day, right? But it's funny when people like compare me to the other people who talk about fashion and beauty and do all those things all the time, and say like, we wish those people would actually say something or express some form of political like view here. But thank you for being like one of the few who actually does this lah. And I really did not expect it to leave an impact like that. Like I definitely didn't. So it was very, very overwhelming in the best way possible, and I'm just so grateful to be able to learn so much and also help other people like see this as well.
So you've got a lot of stuff coming out right now, right? So you've got music videos, you've got collaborations with your brother Subhas. You have Nobody Asked as well, which is an amazing show. Go and check it out. Dissecting and sort of looking deeper into some social issues. And then you have a podcast as well that just came out, Chai Me Bitch, which is really entertaining. Please go look it up. So you've got all these projects in the works. Where do you kind of see yourself heading? Are there new projects coming up? And I think ultimately, what is your goal? What do you hope to achieve with your work?
I think for me, honestly, like when I started doing what I did, I was just I never had like a long-term plan, and I always just try to figure things out as I went with it. Like I just, even creating this podcast, it was something I talked about with Subhash for like, I don't know, like the whole of last year. We toyed with the idea, and we were like, let's do a podcast together. So we were like talking about this for a very long time, and finally I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna do this because it's also gonna be like consistent, regular content that my followers get. Because the one thing that I have not done in the 3 years of creating content is being consistent. I've never had a series, like I do have Nobody Asked, I do have like a series where I react to stuff and all those things, but I have never promised like a frequency. I've never promised like weekly videos, because I just didn't want to put that pressure on myself. But at the end of the day, like if people are going to follow you, they do want to see something regularly. So my podcast has been the first time I've been super consistent. It comes out like once every 2 weeks. And for the podcast, it was something that I mean, after leaving MediaCorp and stuff like that, I was just like, I do want to have a platform where I can essentially talk about anything and everything without feeling the pressure of, let me condense this into a 3-minute funny comedy video. Let me condense this into a Nobody Asked episode, or like something that's super consumable, super short formed, stuff like that. So I was just like, I do want to actually be able to sit there and express my thoughts and express my mind, because I don't think people have seen that side of me. And I definitely do express a lot of like my opinions and thoughts, but it's always condensed into like a funny script or like layers of jokes, subtitles and things like that. It's not just me actually just saying what's on my mind. So the podcast was definitely a way for me to do that, and I think that was like one big goal that I finally got to like check off my list. But I think what's coming next, I feel like I just do want to keep like the podcast really consistent and have that going, and have that like really just like smooth sailing. And then I honestly feel like the goal is really just to get as many people, as many young people talking and thinking about all these things that they don't ever get exposed to in places like school. You know, that like really the amount of like my followers are so young, and I think it started because after I started working at 987.
Do you have like a figure, like roughly what age?
Definitely the bulk of like my audience is definitely 18 to 25.
Okay.
But it goes as young as 12. You know, like 12
okay.
year olds follow me, and to me it's insane because I know like sometimes I say a lot of vulgarities, I say all these things, and that's the only time where I think twice about it, because kids follow me. And but other than that, I would never think twice. Yeah, so I think like because my followers are so young, I definitely want them to like understand and know that these are really things that you should start thinking and talking about, and these are things that you don't have like a lot of avenues to turn to like express yourself or express your thoughts when it comes to things like politics even, you know, like. And but I just do want to like let people know that there are other people out there who's been through this, or who also didn't get it when they were 12 but have tried to figure it out, and here we are today, you know. So I think for me it's really the trying to help the younger audience like figure a lot of things out, or like understand a lot of things around them that they really don't get thought about or even told, like have conversations about. Yeah, so
is that sort of like your broader theory of change then? That you know, I was asking you about this earlier, about how do you see what you do changing Singapore for the better, right? And how does your work actually, you know, what is the mechanism you think that is going to change how people see themselves, see their lives, see the system around them, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I think, I guess like it's very cheesy, but ultimately I feel like I do know like a lot of like younger kids and stuff, they really do look up to me. Like it's weird, and it's very like it's weird to even know that people like that exist. But I think it's with my content and how my content has evolved. And at the start it was really parodies, I'm mocking something, I'm just using satire, and through all that, literally in 2020, like me and a group of friends raised $350,000 for migrant workers. I think it's showing kids that literally on a platform like social media, on a platform that's essentially free, and a platform that you already exist on, you can do so much. You can do like things that we never thought. Like I thought my brother was being crazy ambitious when he said let's aim for 100K. I rolled my eyes, I was like no way. and I literally thought that was insane. And I still cannot believe that happened, because I mean, of course, like I'm very jaded. I mean, obviously, and I think like doing things like starting a fundraiser, I'm just like I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't know if people are gonna care. I sure hope they do, but I don't know if it's gonna work out. So I think like really like just being super ambitious and just putting yourself out there and just doing what you know is right and just sticking by it. That's just insane. Like really, that's amazing advice that I wish like I was told when I was a kid. You know, just stick to what you truly believe in, like follow your gut, like do what you gotta do, and you know it will work out. If you're doing the right thing, it's gonna work out. If you're doing something that's of a certain value, you're gonna see it come to fruition. You know, you're gonna see like it's gonna work out for sure. And I think like for me, the fundraiser was definitely a huge like defining moment in my own career. I was just like, that's insane. Like, yeah, I know we talk about influencers having influence, but that's the last thing I thought I would like be able to achieve, you know, an insane amount of money raised for people who obviously need it a lot. So yeah, I think it's stuff like that.
If I can make an observation, there's also a certain element there of you're lowering the barriers and normalizing political participation among the young, which is particularly potent in a society where, in a political system where the government has always insisted political participation should be channeled through the government and on their terms, right? So what I found, and this is something, you know, New Narrative is also trying to do, but of course, again, nowhere as successful as you in Singapore. You know, I'm so, you know, so full admiration for what you're doing, is that people tend to approach politics as something very either very high above their heads, right? Mysterious, difficult, the domain of the elite, or they think politics is protesting in public, right? There's no in between. But what you're doing is, first, you're demystifying politics. You're saying, look, it's just talking about these things, and you can talk about them in a casual, funny way. You don't need to be serious. You don't need to be highly educated. You don't need to have proper forums like the government insists, right? You don't need to go to a job. You can just sit down, talk about it. And then second, what you're doing is also saying, look, if you want to create change, it's very simple, right? For anyone can create change first, through YouTube. But second, like something as simple as let's all organize to help migrant workers. That actually not only raises money to help migrant workers, it empowers NGOs, it empowers people who are trying to help them, gives them hope, gives them courage. It also demonstrates the strength and vibrancy of independent organization in a political system where the government has tried to eliminate all independent organization, right? But you can't have a healthy society without independent organization. So it seems like you're actually carrying out a whole bunch of different things, performatively, demonstrating, but also then helping people take action, right? And then today, maybe they give $5 to you. Tomorrow, that emboldens them to sign a petition or start a petition. The day after, right, maybe they're volunteering for a political party or they're starting their own NGO. So you're lowering barriers. So all of this is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think with the content that I do also, like when I talk about the younger audience, which really it's a bulk of like my audience for sure. I think it's helping them stay curious and helping them keep like constantly asking these questions and having these thoughts and having these conversations even amongst like family members or friends, just starting them young, to like just keep being curious, because I think like obviously if we talk about education system, I think like it really stops you from being curious. It really like, kind of like silences all those thoughts or like things that you have in your mind and you want to learn more about. So I think ultimately even the fundraiser also, it was literally us just being super curious about what is happening in the dorms, what is happening, like how are they getting fed, how are they getting paid, like what do you mean by paid leave days are being used during quarantine, then what happens when it runs out. So it was just us asking each other all these questions and realizing that there were no answers, and we obviously knew who could answer them, MOM, but they were not going to come answer our questions like that. So of course this was something that we just had to put out there publicly for a lot of people to start realizing that these are actual real people who have these struggles, and they're right there in a dorm near your neighborhood. And it's just so insane that these massive questions were left unanswered and just out there for like people to figure out. And I think it was just us being extremely curious about it, and we obviously know that migrant workers don't have a platform like this, or they just can't make a YouTube video and get people like thinking and talking about all these things or articulate well enough. So I'm just like, you know what, if we can, like, let's do it. Like we're not saying anything, we're not making any like allegations here or accusations here. We're literally just laying all these questions out there, and we're saying that it seems like they don't have a lot of help, so let's do something about it.
So I just have like one last question for you, which is, I think safe to say you're a trailblazer here, right? So you're doing something that's quite novel. So you're taking that sort of influencer, YouTuber, pop star model and then kind of bringing your activism into it, right? And I'm sure as, time goes on, as the proliferation of technology continues, there are going to be a lot of young people who are going to want to do something similar to you, who are going to want to work politics into their work, their online presence, their online persona, right? They're going to want to do something similar to you and maybe not get into that mold, the restrictive mold of being an establishment media personality. What are some of the core tips and tricks that you've learned along the way that you could give to, I don't know if maybe there's like some young, new Preetipls 2.0 watching, right? But what are some sort of tips and tricks that you've learned along the way that you could share with anybody who wants to sort of emulate you?
I really think it ultimately just goes back to the most like, it's a piece of advice that I feel like everyone has heard, but it's really, you do you like really stick by what you believe in. Don't let
that's
that,
easier said than done.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. It's tough. Like along the way, especially if you're gonna try be in the industry like that I'm in, I guess it's very easy to get swayed. It's very easy to lose sight of like what you like of your focus. What you why you're even doing what you're doing. And I think like for me from day one, it's always been, if this can pay the bills, great. But I'm just here to create entertaining content, poke fun at a lot of real things that I think we should be talking about. And I would like to think that today I still do that, but of course it has evolved for sure, and I talk about a lot more things that I never expected myself to talk about today. And I think, it just goes back to me just sticking by my gut and always knowing that, like, even with the death penalty video, like, I thought about it for a very long time, and I'm like, this is a lot to put out on a platform, and this is a lot for a very young audience as well, and this is definitely not something that's the fundraiser and talking about the global pandemic and stuff like that, that's a lot as well, but this is really next level a lot. So I thought about it for a while, and I was just like, there's literally not enough people talking about this, and if I'm scared to talk about this, then that says a lot, that just goes back to like, no one's talking about this because they're scared, and why should I be scared? So I did get a lot of backlash from that video. Like, I did get a lot of people saying like the most disgusting things, like, what if your mother was the one who got killed or raped? Like, people were literally saying that in my comment section, and I'm like, of course the emotional response is to feel a certain way, and if you're gonna pull at heartstrings and do this kind of shit, of course, like, the emotional response is to, like, the first thing, if someone's gonna kill your family member, you're gonna be like, oh, I want them dead. That's the first thing you're gonna think of. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna stick by what I believe in, and my stance is the same. I do want the person to get life imprisonment. I do want that instead of a death penalty. So it's just really like, it's a lot, and it's very overwhelming to be on the internet and to just put your thoughts out there, of course. And it's always going to be tough. There's always going to be haters. And even up till today, anything I do, it could be the most random video. It could be a video of me showering my dog, and I would literally get like, oh, this is the racist girl. Like, I would still get people referencing like brownface and talking about it. So I think ultimately, like, if your intentions are clear and you know why you're doing what you're doing, I think that's the only way to go. Like, don't do something for the wrong intentions. Don't do something for some reason that you don't truly believe in, and you're just doing because you think it's popular. So I think just stick to your gut, stick to like what you believe in, and have the right intentions.
I think you're absolutely right there, and I think that's the other thing. Having self-awareness, as you've identified, having courage. Right, but you can't really draw upon that courage unless you're doing something that you actually truly believe in, and then that courage is going to get tested, right? And this is something I think maybe you and I don't talk enough, or all three of us actually. We've had our encounters with the police. Our courage and convictions will get tested at some point, and so anyone else who wants to do this has to recognize they're going up against a very insecure state, which is increasingly insecure and lashing out more and more. So that's another thing. I guess it's knowing that there will be a backlash from the state, but also knowing that you're not alone. And I think this is something we also want to emphasize, that and something else we're trying to achieve with these podcasts, to show that, look, there's so many people trying to create positive change out there, and if you're trying to create positive change, don't feel like you're alone. Come and reach out to us, and we are going to be there to help you, give you a hand up, and help us. If you're a young person trying to do something really interesting, reach out, and we'll have you on the podcast, and we'll talk to you, and you can talk about what you're doing, and we can give our ideas and help amplify your message. So that's another thing I think I'd like to add, that we're not alone, right? The government, the PAP, tries to isolate and atomize us, but we have to work together and stick together, collectively to resist.
And I think like also one thing that definitely got me through like the whole brownface incident and everything was I honestly, like, as much as mainstream media was covering it and the amount of like hate that I was getting from there, it honestly didn't matter as much just looking at my DMs, because I really genuinely saw like way more positive than negative from this. And of course, it's difficult to believe because of what was put out there by the state. But I think like the amount of support that came in, the amount of people just thanking like Subhash and I, and just saying, somebody had to say this, thank you for finally saying this, it's so exhausting. And I guess like the one silver lining is that brownface is probably not going to happen again. Hopefully. I mean, that's a very
Yeah,
bold
if,
statement.
if you know, if anything, right? Yeah, it's such a, because it blew up so big, right?
Yeah.
So we know, I think we can conclusively say that is the legacy that you've left, right? It's not gonna happen again. I can't imagine it happen again.
Yeah.
At least while that video is still in people's memories and people's consciousness, you've at least been sort of a bulwark against that. So that is the, people sometimes say, oh, you do activism. What's the tangible change? This is the tangible change, the tangible effect, right?
Yeah.
We're not gonna see this bullshit again.
Yeah, and I
Thank
really
God.
hope so. I really hope so, because like MediaCorp has a very bad rep of just constantly painting people brown. So I hope this does not happen again. And I mean, it's been an insane, like, super wild ride, but I honestly cannot wait to like have my own kids and tell them about this. Like, this is some insane, like I cannot wait for someday to share about this story and be like, oh my God, like my brother and I did that. Like this is insane. Yeah.
That's a cool story for like the kids, the grandkids.
Right.
My God, yeah. I think that's the bright side of activism, the stories, the experiences. Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So thank you so much for being on our show. I think we've discussed so many very interesting things today. And I think, that was a really nice sort of positive message that we had at the end. The tangible change that we've seen you do, right? Just the amazing work, the fulfillment that you get by, sort of cutting it out, making it out on your own instead of joining that establishment and all of that, right? So we are looking forward to work coming out from you, new videos, new projects, right? Always excited to see what's going on in that Pretty Please world on the Pretty Please channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to her channel. It's wonderful, right?
Links in the show notes and in the comments below, the description below. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being with us, Pretty Please.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Pretty, and thank you, Sean, for, as usual, fantastic job co-hosting.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to all of you for joining us on Political Agenda. See you next time.